Hi all, hope all are doing good. Myself Kartika, Assistant Professor, Computer Science and Engineering Department from Banariaman Institute of Technology. Today we are going to see an interesting topic. Consider that I am going to prepare mutton biryani. Yummy, isn't it? Before preparing biryani, what will I do? I will collect all the necessary ingredients for the biryani. Then I will start preparing it. If I put all the collected ingredients at a stretch and start preparing the biryani, how would the output be? I would get a dish with the name biryani, but I can't guarantee the taste, isn't it? Because certain procedures have to be followed while preparing biryani, like which ingredients I have to add first, then after that what should be added, how much time a particular ingredient should be cooked before adding the other ingredients. Likewise, if the procedures are followed in an optimized manner, the final output, that is mutton biryani, will taste good. Otherwise, it is a complete waste of time and no one will eat that biryani. So from this, we have understood that before doing a process, we should analyze the ways by which it could be completed in an optimized manner. Without optimization, we cannot achieve the expected outputs. Similarly, compiler uses such optimization procedures before generating the target code to avoid unusual outputs and to guarantee less running time. Let us discuss the code optimization process and the ways by which the target codes are generated by the compilers in this lecture. First, code generation. Code generation can be considered as the final phase of compilation. Through post-code generation, optimization process can be applied on the code, but that can be seen as a part of code generation phase itself. So, the code generated by the compiler is an object code of some lower level programming language, for example, assembly language. We have seen that the source code written in a high level language is transformed into a lower level language that results in a lower level object code, and that should contain the following minimum properties. That is, it should carry the exact meaning of the source code, and also it should be efficient in terms of CPU usage and memory management. The code generation process gives efficient and correct code with high quality. The process of code generation, by which a compiler's code generator converts some internal representation of the source code into a form of machine code, is represented in this figure. See here, before code generation, we will always perform optimization. After optimizing the code only, we will go to the code generation phase, and the code generation phase uses the symbol table to generate the respective target code. The input given to a code generator is nothing but the intermediate code, that is the 3 address code, and the output generated would be a machine level language, that is binary language or an assembly language or a relocatable language. The code generation consists of two main processes. That is, first, it will generate intermediate code from semantic representation of the program, and it generates machine code from the intermediate code. So these are the two important processes that will happen in a code generation phase. In order to have a good compiler, the following conditions should hold. First, the output code must be correct. That is, the meaning of the source and the target program must remain the same. That is, when an input is given, we should get the same output both from the target and from the source program. We have no definite way to ensure this condition. Then output code must be of high quality. So the target code should make effective use of all the resources of the target machine. Then only we can expect an output of high quality. Then code generator must run efficiently. So it is of no use if the code generator itself takes hours or minutes to convert a small piece of code. So the code generator has to run efficiently, that is, it has to run and produce the target code in a time effective manner. Okay. Next, the important phase before code generation is code optimization. So various optimization techniques speed up the object program by a factor of 2 or 3 over the speed of a program produced by a straightforward compiler, and it reduces the memory occupied by the same. So the code produced by a straightforward compiling algorithms can often be made to run faster or take less space. This improvement is achieved by program transformations that are traditionally called as optimizations. So compilers that apply code improving transformations are called as optimizing compilers. So to create an efficient target language program, a programmer needs more than an optimizing compiler. Then types of optimization. There are two types of optimization: machine dependent optimization and machine independent optimization. So machine dependent optimization has some special machine properties that can reduce the amount of code or execution time. So it is completely dependent on the source language and the target machine. Example for machine dependent optimization is register allocation and utilization of special machine instruction sequences. So these are the examples of machine dependent optimization. Then machine independent optimization. So this machine independent optimization depends only on the arithmetic operations in the language and not on the target machine. The program transformations will help us to improve the target code without taking into consideration any properties of the target machine. So in this optimization, the compiler takes on the intermediate code and transforms a part of the code that does not involve any CPU registers or memory locations. For example, if we take this, here it's a piece of code where inside the loop we are assigning 10 to item and we are adding that item value with value and storing it in the value itself. Then there is a condition while loop. So this code involves repeated assignment of the identifier item. So if we put in this way, that is, if we move the item assignment outside of the loop like this, first let us assign 10 to item, then let us move into the loop. So this type of conversion not only save the CPU cycles but can be used on any processor. So this kind of optimization is called as machine independent optimization. Right? Next, let us see about the criteria for code improving transformations. So the best program transformations are those that yield the most benefit, fit the least effort. Okay. The transformation provided by an optimizing compiler should have several properties, like the transformation must preserve the meaning of the programs, the transformation must, on the average, speed up the programs by a measurable amount, and the transformation must be worth the effort. So this is the criteria for code improving transformations. And for getting better performance, improvement in the running time of a program from a few hours to a few seconds are usually obtained by improving the programs at all levels from the source level to the target level, as demonstrated in this figure. See here in the front end, the user will do profile program, change algorithm, transform loops, and in the intermediate code, the code generator can do improve the loops, procedure calls and address calculations, and in code optimization, the optimizer can use the registers effectively, select the appropriate instructions and do peephole transformations. So at each level, the available options fall between two extremes of finding a better algorithm and of implementing a given algorithm so that fewer operations are performed. So algorithmic transformation may improve the running time, and it may not be possible to perform certain code improving transformation at the level of source language. Okay. So in order to obtain better performance at each and every level, we have to improve the program in order to improve overall running time of a program. Next, organization of the code compiler. See, the code improvement phase consists of control flow analysis, data flow analysis, followed by application of transformation. The code generator will produce the target code from the transformed intermediate code. So, this is the organization of the optimizing compiler. So, this optimizing compiler will have the following advantages, that is, the operations required to implement high level constructs are made explicit in the intermediate code, so it is possible to optimize the intermediate code, and the intermediate code can be independent of the target machine, so the optimizer does not have to change much if the code generator is replaced by one for a different machine. So these are the advantages of optimizing compilers. Next, let us discuss about the principal sources of optimization. See, a transformation of a program is called local if it can be performed by looking only at the statements in a basic block. Otherwise, it is called global. Mini transformation can be performed at both local level and at global level. First, local transformations are usually performed. Okay. In principal sources of optimization, let us discuss about the necessity of code optimization. Why there is a necessity of code optimization? In programming, usually we have to avoid using loops. So the loops in programming language should follow the 90:10 rule, and also the optimization will help us to reduce the execution time. So this is the necessity of code optimization. Next, let us discuss about the optimization factors. So usually the optimization depends on various factors like memory, algorithm, execution time and programming language. There are a number of ways in which a compiler can improve a program without changing the function it computes. That is, the two types of this optimization is function preserving transformation and loop optimization. Let us discuss about these two types in detail. First, let us discuss about function preserving transformations. There are a number of ways in which a compiler can improve a program without changing the function it computes. The types of function preserving optimization techniques are common sub-expression elimination, copy propagation, dead code elimination and constant folding. The other transformations come up primarily when global optimizations are performed. So frequently a program will include several calculations of the offset in an array. So some of the duplicate calculations cannot be avoided by the programmer because they lie below the level of detail accessible within the source language. Let us discuss about the different types of function preserving optimizations in detail. Common sub-expression elimination. First, we need to know what is meant by a sub-expression. An occurrence of an expression E is called a sub-expression if E was previously computed and the values of variables in E have not changed since the previous computation. So that is called as a common sub-expression. We can avoid recomputing this sub-expression if we can use the previously computed value. Okay. So for example, here we have an expression T1 is equal to 4 into I, T2 is equal to A of T1, T3 is equal to 4 into J, T4 is equal to 4 into I, T5 equal to N. In this code, we have a common sub-expression, that is T1 equal to 4 into I and T4 equal to 4 into I. So the two expressions are computing the same. The result of these two expressions are same. So this common sub-expression can be eliminated, that is either we can eliminate T1 or we can eliminate T4. Since T1 is coming before T1, we will calculate T1 first. Then while evaluating T4, already the result of 4 into I is stored in T1. So we will use the value of this T1 as the value have not been changed from the previous usage. So we are reusing the value by eliminating this common sub-expression T4. So this code can be optimized as T1 remains the same, T2 remains the same, T3 remains the same, whereas T4 is eliminated, T5 equal to N, T6 is equal to B of T4. Since T4 is eliminated, we are using what? Instead of T4, we are using the result of T1 since both are same. So instead of T4, we will write T1 then plus 5. So this is the way of removing common sub-expression. Next, copy propagation. Copy propagation means use of one variable instead of another. So we will use G for F whenever possible after the copy statement F equal to G. The assignments of the form F equal to G are called copy state, right? So the idea behind the copy propagation transformation is to use G for F whenever possible after the copy statement F equal to G. So copy propagation, once again let me tell, copy propagation is nothing but it means a use of one variable instead of another. So this may not appear to be an improvement. As we shall see it, it gives an opportunity to eliminate x. For example, here we are having x is equal to pi, then another expression a equal to x into r into r. So the optimization using copy propagation can be done as a equal to pi into r into r. Instead of x, I can directly write pi here. Thus, the variable x is eliminated. So this is the usage of copy propagation. Instead of using the assignment statement, see here pi is assigned to x, then we are using x in all the upcoming statements. So instead of assigning a value or assigning some values to a variable, we can use that value directly in the expression. That is the usage of copy propagation. Next, dead code elimination. So a variable is said to be live at a point in a program if its value can be used subsequently. Otherwise, it is dead at that point. Okay. A related idea is dead or useless code, that is statements that compute values that never get used. So that is called as dead code. While the programmer is unlikely to introduce any dead code intentionally, it may appear as the result of previous transformation. For example, if I equal to 0, if I equal to 1, a equal to b plus 5, that's all. See here, in this if statement is a dead code because in the previous statement we have assigned the value of I equal to 0, but here we are checking a condition if I equal to 1. So this if condition will never get satisfied. So this complete statements within the if block is what? It is a dead code. So this kind of dead code should be eliminated. Next, constant folding. Deducing at compile time that the value of an expression is a constant and using that constant instead is known as constant folding. See, one advantage of copy propagation is that it often turns the copy statement into dead one. For example, here we have an expression like this, a equal to 3.14157 divided by 2. So this statement can be replaced as a equal to 1.570. Here unwantedly we are dividing something, dividing a constant by a constant and assigning that answer to a. So instead of it directly we can divide it and we can store that value, division value to a. So that is called as constant folding. So this helps to eliminate the unwanted division operation. So division operation is quite expensive. So we can avoid this division operation by directly using that division operation value for assigning to a. So this is called as copy propagation. So we have seen the 4 types of function preserving transformations. Next we are going to see about loop optimization. What is loop optimization? In loops, especially in the inner loops, programs tend to spend the bulk of their running time. So the running time of a program may be improved if the number of instructions in an inner loop is decreased, even if we increase the amount of code outside that loop. Okay. 3 techniques are important for loop optimization. One is code motion, which helps to move the code outside a loop. Next, induction variable elimination. So this we apply to replace variables from the inner loop, then reduction in strength, and this replaces an expensive operation by a cheaper one. That is, it will replace like a multiplication operation which is quite expensive with an addition operation. That is called as reduction in strength. So these are the three types of loop optimization. Let us discuss about these in detail. First, code motion. So the important modification that decreases the amount of code in a loop is called as code motion. So this transformation takes an expression that yields the same result independent of the number of times a loop is executed. That is a loop invariant computation, and that particular loop invariant computation is placed before the loop. Okay, that kind of transformation is performed in code motion. We have to note that the notion before the loop assumes the existence of an entry for the loop. For example, here evaluation of limit minus 2. So this is what? This is a loop invariant computation in this while statement. Okay, so what we can do means code motion will provide an equivalent code like this. That is, we can compute limit n minus 2 and we can save it, or we can assign the value of limit n minus 2 a variable t, and we can use t in the while loop. This does not change the result, whereas it will optimize the computation inside the loop, isn't it? That is the usage of code motion. So we can remove the loop invariant computation and we can use that loop invariant computation outside the loop, so that the heaviness inside the loop could be reduced. Next, induction variables. Any two variables are said to be induction variables if there is a change in one of the variable, then there is a corresponding change in the other variable. So that is called as induction variable. So loops are usually processed inside out. For example, here consider the loop j equal to j minus 1, t4 equal to 4 into j, t5 is equal to a of t4. If t5 greater than v, go to b3. Note the values of j and t4 remains in lockstep. That is, every time the value of j decreases by 1, that of t4 decreases by 4, because 4 into j is assigned to t4. Such identifiers are called as induction variables. When there are more induction variables in a loop, it may be possible to get rid of all at once by the process of induction variable elimination. So for this statements, we can get rid of either j or t4 completely. That is, instead of multiplying 4 into j, we can optimize like that. J equal to j minus 1 and t4 is equal to what? T4 is equal to t4 minus 4. We will each time reduce the t4 value with 4. That is the answer of this 4 into j. So instead of using a multiplication operator, we can use a subtraction operator. So we are trying to replace one variable with another variable. So here we are not directly using the variable j itself. Instead of it, we are using what? We are using a constant value 4. But the result of both are same, but the dependency of the variable is reduced here. That is called as induction variables. So the replacement of a multiplication by a subtraction here will speed up the object code if multiplication takes more time than addition or subtraction, as in the case on many machines. That's why we try to replace this multiplication by the subtraction operation. Next, reduction in strength. So reduction in strength is nothing but it is replacing the expensive operation by equivalent cheaper ones on the target machine. That is called as reduction in strength. Certain machine instructions are considerably cheaper than others and can often be used as a special cases of more expensive operators. See, for example, here t2 is equal to 4 into I. This is what? This is a multiplication operator. Instead of it, we can write the same expression like this. T2 is equal to T2 plus 4. So we are replacing the multiplication operation with addition operation. See, for example, if we are having x into x in our expression, we can replace this x into x by a cheaper expression like x square, because x square is invariably cheaper to implement as x into x than as a call to an exponential routine. Okay, so fixed point multiplication or division by a power of 2 is cheaper to implement as a shift. So floating point division by a constant can be implemented as multiplication by a constant, which may be cheaper. So we always try to replace the expression that is heavier with an expression that is cheaper. That is called as reduction in strength. Next, we are going to see about DAG. DAG is nothing but it is a directed acyclic graph, and it is an abstract syntax tree with a unique node for each value. So DAG is otherwise called as directed acyclic graph with no cycles. There won't be any cycles in it. DAG is a useful data structure for implementing transformations on basic blocks. So basic block can also be optimized by the construction of a DAG. We will be discussing about what is meant by basic block in our upcoming lectures. So DAG provides a good way to determine the common sub-expression, and also it gives a pictorial representation of how the values computed by the statement is used in subsequent state. Okay. Next, representation of DAG for basic blocks. A DAG for a basic block has the following labels on the nodes. Leaves are labeled with unique identifiers, either variable names or constants, and interior nodes are labeled with an operator symbol, and nodes are also optionally given a sequence of identifiers for values. Okay, so the leaves will contain what? It contain the identifier, it may be a variable name or constant, and interior nodes is labeled with an operator symbol. So that is how we can draw a DAG for a basic block. Next, let us see the rules for constructing a DAG. Rule 1. In a DAG, a leaf node should represent what? Identifiers, names or constant, and interior nodes should represent the operators. Then rule 2. While constructing a DAG, there is a check made to find if there is an existing node with the same children. A new node is created only when such a node does not exist. So this action allows us to redact common sub-expression and eliminate the recomputation of the same. Then rule 3, the assignment of the form x equal to y must be performed until and unless it is a must. So these are the rules for constructing a DAG. Let us check with an example of constructing a DAG for a given expression. So the expression given is a plus b star a plus b plus c. Now we are going to construct a DAG for the given expression. So before constructing a DAG, we have to write a 3 address code for the given expression. So the 3 address code is, first we will compute a plus b. So a plus b is computed and the result is stored in the temporary variable t1. Then again here we are having a plus b. So a plus b is already computed and the result is stored in t1. So simply we are using t1 and add t1 with c. So t1 is and c is added and the result is stored in t2. Now the result of this one is t1 and the result of a plus b plus c is stored in t2. Then finally we are multiplying t1 and t2 and storing the result in t3. So this is the 3 address code for this expression. After writing the 3 address code, we will construct a DAG for it. First let us construct a DAG for t1 equal to a plus b. So t1 equal to a plus b. So leaves will contain the identifier and the inner loop will contain the operator. What is the operator? Plus is the operator. So a plus b. Okay. So the result is stored where? It is stored in t1. Next, for this expression t2 equal to t1 plus c, we are going to draw a DAG. So the result of a plus b is stored in t1. So this t1 is added with c, and the result is stored where? The result is stored in t2. Okay. Next, finally, both t1 and t2 is multiplied and the result is stored in t3. Okay. So t1 is stored here and t2 is stored here. Both are multiplied and the result is stored in t3. So t3 equal to t1 into t2. So this is the final DAG for our given expression. a plus b star a plus b plus c. Let us discuss with some other examples of DAG in our next lecture. So as a summary, here in this lecture we have discussed about the function transforming optimization technique and loop optimization techniques within examples. Let us discuss about how to draw a DAG for many expressions in detail in our next lecture.